Welcome back to the live desk, updating breaking news and big stories in the boxes on the right-hand side of the screen. The top box, that bloodshed going on now in the former Soviet Republic of Georgia. Russian troops and Georgian troops now battling in the breakaway province of Ossetia. We'll bring you much more on that during the course of this hour. In the middle box, take a look at the Dow, will you? Up 307 points. Oil, by the way, down $4.40 a barrel, just above the $116 a barrel mark. A huge decline in the past 3 weeks. That means gas prices could go way back down. And where in the world is Caylee Anthony? Her third birthday is tomorrow. Her mother now wants to go back to court to get her bond lowered. We'll let you know if that happens. But right now, up to Studio D and Julie.
Trace, thank you. Casey Anthony, the mom of the missing toddler, refusing a jailhouse visit from her brother Lee today. Casey has been charged with felony negligence of a child and lying to investigators in the case of her 2-year-old daughter. She's been missing, Caylee, now for 7 weeks, and Caylee Anthony's third birthday happens to be tomorrow. Now, Fox caught up with Lee moments before he was about to visit his sister at the prison. Listen.
I do have a firm belief, as you know, it's been well documented, my mother does too, that there's the potential that someone out there that has knowledge of the situation in regards to Caylee or otherwise could be listening, and we don't want to jeopardize anybody's, including my own or my sister or anybody else. We don't want to jeopardize anybody's safety here, and that, of course, is making it very difficult.
All right, let's bring in our legal panel now. Bill Daly is a former FBI agent. He is here with me. Jennifer Bonjean is a criminal defense attorney, and Randy Zellin, a former prosecutor. Thank you all for coming on. Jennifer, let me go to you first. I think it's very odd that this family loves each other, then hates each other, then loves each other. I mean, you remember those audio tapes, the 911 tapes, where Cindy and daughter Casey literally were at each other's throats. Right. And now today, brother Lee isn't getting in. His sister is refusing his visitation. Do you think there's a reason behind that? What do you sense?
It's hard to say. Sometimes people have unusual motives for refusing a visit. That I don't draw too much from, but I do think it is interesting that they're back and forth. You know, I think there is this willful blindness maybe going on a little bit on the parts of them, but at the same time, you know, trying to do the right thing, and it's probably a real conflict, a real struggle within the family.
Bill, I think it's interesting because you know that her lawyers are informing the family of how to deal with this best. And yesterday, when Cindy Anthony, the mother, Casey Anthony's mother, her home was searched, and she was there with her son Lee, and now he goes to visit his sister, and she refuses the visit. Do you think this is advice that they're getting from her lawyer?
You know, it's very difficult, Julie. This has been certainly a quagmire of clues, innuendo, and probably more complicated than a Sunday crossword puzzle with exactly what they're all doing and saying. But I think we look at this case, at least from an investigative standpoint, and strip away all of this, you know, distraction and say, what are investigators looking at? They've gone to the house, they've gotten search warrants, they've taken more clothing, they've taken dirt samples last week, they've taken the car, they're doing DNA sampling, they're still waiting to come back from the trunk of the car. So the law enforcement is actively looking at all angles of this, whether it's from the family or whether it is the child truly being lost out there, and they're trying to follow up as best they can.
Randy, she hasn't helped. I mean, first of all, Casey has lied to investigators not once, but twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Let's look at the timeline. I mean, the lies just stack up more and more and more and more. It reminds me of the Natalie Holloway case in Aruba. I mean, those guys just lied left and right. Casey says that she, this is what I think is interesting, received a brief call from Caylee at about noon on July 15th. Now, let's leave this up there, okay? Cell phone records show that there was no call. Now, let me further emphasize here, which this is where I don't understand. Caylee is 2 years old, and she's picking up the phone and calling her mother. Now, I don't have any children, but I can't imagine a 2-year-old is going to be picking up their phone and calling their mom. I mean, that right there, I think, is probably the most blatant lie out of all of them. What's your reaction? My reaction is everything that you said and everything that I've heard so far tells us why you don't open your mouth. Imagine the evidence in this case had she never opened up her mouth. That may be very unpopular from a parenting standpoint, from a public standpoint, but from a lawyering standpoint, from a defense standpoint, she never opens up her mouth. She's probably home right now.
Well, here's the problem. She didn't report her missing for 30 days, though. That was the first. She didn't open her mouth. She wasn't reported missing for 30 days. That's showing a guilty conscience, which is a problem.
But once she started opening her mouth, that's where she's in a lot of trouble. And I'm quite honestly surprised that they haven't gotten enough evidence at this point to charge her with more than child negligence and lying, Bill.
Well, I think at this point, it's a lot of her conflicting statements. Maybe if you say misleading authorities, and you say to yourself immediately, saying, if I'm looking for my child earnestly and I want the law enforcement to help find him, why am I being so so underhanded about this? Why am I not being clear about what's going on? So I think in this case there's nothing more right now they can charge her with, otherwise they would. I think what it is that it suggests strongly that law enforcement needs to be looking on their own elsewhere outside of her statements.
Let's throw up the rest of our timeline because, I mean, keeping track of this girl's stories are really, really tough. Casey says that Kaylee's babysitter lived with a woman who worked at TGI Fridays. The cop side of the story, well, TGI Fridays representative is saying that they have no employee with the name Casey provided. And also, we've got one more here, another untruth. Casey says, I told 2 co-workers at Kodak about Kaylee's disappearance. She said she worked at Universal Kodak's counter. Well, cops say Kodak has no employment records for either person Casey named. So there's no babysitter, there's no employee at Kodak. There is, I mean, there are no truths to this story at this point.
But the problem is that we still don't know whether a crime was committed, except perhaps concealment of a body, because we don't know what happened. We could have a mental state where it was an accident, for instance. We do know that she was probably involved with concealing the body, or there's a good chance of it, but we don't know what happened. We have no mental state, and that's why they can't charge her with anything more serious at this point.
Okay, but Randy, I know you're going to jump in there, but let me just talk about the evidence there. I mean, cadaver dogs, they are trained to sniff out bodies, and cadaver dogs in the family trunk of the Pontiac, they said that a cadaver dog alerted on the trunk, in other words, led police there, indicating the presence of human decomposition odor. The family members maintain it's old pizza.
However, we've learned from the Madeline McCann case that the accuracy of a cadaver dog drops significantly when there's no body. So again, from everything that we've heard here, we've heard speculation, we've heard innuendo. It doesn't feel right, but as far as the evidence goes, what do you have? You don't even have evidence of a missing,
Bill, I'm
that she's dead.
Final word, because we got it.
However, on that case, on that matter, in the trunk, there was a stain which the police believe may have been bodily fluids or such, and they're examining those. They're doing DNA testing. Unfortunately, it's taken a bit while because of some of the decomposition that takes place. But I believe this case, the forensic pieces will be the determining factor on it.
Okay, police are also saying that they're not going to necessarily release those DNA tests, so it could be some time before we know exactly what that bodily fluid was. Jennifer Bonjean, Bill Daly, and Randy Zellen, thank you all for coming on.
Thank you.